You wake up every single morning, and before you do anything else, before you brush your teeth, before you even check your phone, you need it. And if you don't get it, the headache kicks in, the brain fog rolls in, you become irritable, sluggish, and basically useless until you get your fix. Now, here's the thing. What I just described isn't some quirky morning personality trait. That is a full dependency cycle, running on a psychoactive drug. Caffeine is the most widely consumed psychoactive substance on the entire planet. And today, we're talking about the side of it that nobody wants to discuss. To really understand why caffeine causes problems, you first need to understand what it's actually doing inside your brain. Because most people have it completely wrong. Here's the thing that surprises most people. Caffeine does not actually give you energy. It doesn't generate alertness. It simply masks the feeling of fatigue. Let that land. Throughout the day, your brain naturally produces a molecule called adenosine. As it builds up, it binds to receptors in your brain and makes you feel progressively more tired. In the morning, you have very little adenosine. By afternoon, it has accumulated significantly. By evening, your brain is completely saturated with it and sleep pressure is at its absolute peak. What caffeine does is physically block those adenosine receptors. The adenosine can't bind, so you don't feel the tiredness, but the tiredness is absolutely still there, still building up. The moment caffeine clears your system, which takes several hours, all of that built-up adenosine floods those receptors at once. That is the afternoon crash. That is the headache. And here's where it gets darker. Your brain responds to those chronically blocked receptors by actually growing more adenosine receptors over time to compensate for the constant interference. More receptors means more baseline fatigue without caffeine, which means you need more caffeine just to feel normal. The tolerance trap has quietly closed around you without you even noticing. Now here's the part that is genuinely underappreciated. Every single time you consume caffeine, your body triggers a measurable cortisol response within minutes of that very first sip. Cortisol is your primary stress hormone. It's the exact same chemical that floods your body when you sense danger, when you're under serious pressure, or when you haven't slept. Now think about how most people actually use caffeine. First thing in the morning, before eating anything, on a completely empty stomach, while already mentally stressed about the day ahead. Here's the problem. Cortisol naturally hits its absolute highest point in the first 60 minutes after you wake up. That is your body's natural morning activation system, already running at full power. When you stack caffeine on top of that natural cortisol peak, you are not making yourself more alert. You are spiking an already elevated system and setting yourself up for a much harder crash. Chronically elevated stress hormones are not a minor inconvenience. Over time, they can interfere with sleep, memory, recovery, appetite, and how your body handles energy. And this is where people get trapped. They are not using caffeine for performance anymore. They are using it to outrun exhaustion. That is why so many people feel drained despite drinking coffee all day. The caffeine is not giving them energy. It is helping them ignore the debt. Now let's talk about sleep, because this is where the damage really compounds. Caffeine has a half-life of around 5 to 6 hours, depending on your individual biology. That means if you drink a coffee at 2 in the afternoon, half of that caffeine is still actively circulating in your bloodstream when you sit down to sleep at 8. Here's what most people completely miss. Caffeine doesn't just affect whether you fall asleep. It significantly degrades the quality of the sleep you do get, specifically your deep sleep stages. Slow-wave sleep is your deepest recovery stage. It's where your body repairs tissue, consolidates memories from the day, and literally flushes metabolic waste out of your brain overnight. Caffeine suppresses slow-wave sleep even when it doesn't stop you falling asleep. You can sleep a full 8 hours and still wake up feeling completely destroyed. And this is exactly why. You slept 8 hours, but your brain never fully recovered. The caffeine quietly robbed your deepest sleep cycles, and your body woke up still carrying the debt from the night before. So what do you do when you wake up exhausted? You reach for coffee, which degrades tonight's sleep, which makes tomorrow morning worse. The cycle feeds itself and tightens every single day. For some chronic caffeine users, this can create a quiet sleep deficit over time. You feel functional, but you forget what truly rested feels like. If you've ever felt your heart racing, your thoughts spiraling out of control, or a creeping sense of dread after your third cup of the day, you are not imagining it. Caffeine directly stimulates your central nervous system and triggers a measurable increase in adrenaline output. Your heart beats faster, your blood pressure rises, and your body shifts into a stress alert state. For people who are already anxious or genetically predisposed to anxiety disorders, that stimulation isn't focus, it's fuel on a fire. Caffeine becomes a serious and deeply underestimated accelerant of anxiety symptoms. Here's the tricky part. Caffeine-induced anxiety and a genuine anxiety disorder feel almost completely identical from the inside. Racing heart, restlessness, difficulty concentrating, irritability. The symptom list? Virtually the same. Some people are managing anxiety symptoms with therapy, medication, meditation apps, while never checking whether caffeine is quietly making those symptoms worse. There is also a significant genetic component. Variations in the CYP1A2 gene determine how quickly your liver breaks down caffeine. Some people break caffeine down quickly, others clear it much more slowly, which means the same cup can hit two people completely differently. Now, none of what we've covered means caffeine is poison or that you need to swear it off forever. Used intelligently and deliberately, it is a genuinely powerful cognitive performance tool. Rule 1. Delay your first cup. Wait at least 90 minutes after waking before consuming any caffeine. Let that natural cortisol peak rise and fall on its own first. When you do that, you get a cleaner, smoother energy boost. You avoid stacking stimulants on top of each other, and your afternoon crash will be significantly softer. Game changer. Rule 2. Set a hard cutoff time. Given caffeine's 5 to 6 hour half-life, stopping at noon to 1 in the afternoon gives your body enough time to fully clear it before sleep. Rule 3. Audit your actual baseline. If you need caffeine not to feel good, but just to feel normal and functional, that is tolerance talking. That is not a healthy relationship with this substance. Seriously consider a 2-week caffeine reset. The first 3 to 4 days will be rough, headaches, fatigue, irritability. Push through it. Because by day 10, most people feel more energized than they have in years. Rule 4. Do not use caffeine to mask sleep debt. If you're tired because you slept 5 hours, caffeine will help you ignore that problem, but it will absolutely make it worse. Rule 5. Know your own genetics. If anxiety or chronically poor sleep is an ongoing issue for you, run a 30-day caffeine-free experiment before assuming it must be something else entirely. Caffeine is not the villain in this story, but it is also absolutely not the harmless, innocent morning ritual that we have all collectively, and very conveniently, agreed to pretend it is. It is a powerful, widely accepted, socially encouraged psychoactive drug, and most people are consuming it compulsively, at the wrong times, in amounts that are quietly and consistently degrading their health. The good news? Awareness really is most of the battle. You do not have to quit. You just have to use it smarter than it has been using you. If this changed how you think about your morning cup, good. That was exactly the point. Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and I will see you in the next one.